We are today watching unfolding a drama that's going to go down in the history books as one of the epic turning points in the Western economy, because there now seems to be a unanimous feeling that Gordon Brown has somehow resolved or begun to resolve the economic crisis by helping to bail out the banks, and that if only Western governments now listen to him yet again about the real economy, maybe we can avoid the serious downturn which everybody seems to be agreed is going to happen. Gordon Brown himself could have prevented this downturn in this country 10 years ago, and I'm saying that quite explicitly, that he was the one man who was provided with the knowledge, with the warning of when this catastrophe would happen, how it would happen, and what to do about it, and he did absolutely nothing. This is insanity. It is the economics of the madhouse. Anything that Gordon Brown said about bailing out the real economy should be treated with a pinch of salt. He was the man who, early in the 1990s, said there would be no more housing boom busts. We've had the worst housing boom bust in history. Economists today and the commentators in the media seem to think that we're going to avoid a depression because they are looking back to the 1930s and assuming that what they see there is something that can't happen again today. But this is like comparing apples and oranges. What happened in the 30s happened in a world that's quite different from what we have today. In the 1930s, economists, economic historians say, there was a liquidity crisis. And if we could solve that liquidity crisis today, there won't be a depression. So the real liquidity crisis today is not within the banks, it's within the household. And because consumers will not borrow and spend for the next up to 10 years while they are, it's called deleveraging, getting rid of these mammoth debts, because they won't borrow and spend, the global economy will contract, consumption will be reduced, shops will shut, suppliers will go out of business. The Western consumer in particular is so heavily indebted, after the last 10 years, that the task will be to pay off those debts or go through the bankruptcy process to have those debts cancelled. Tighter regulation of the banks will not prevent the next business cycle, which is characterized by, ultimately, property speculation leading to the next boom and the bust. Our Prime Minister seems to treat the people of Britain as fools. He is now claiming that he has actually stabilise the economy, the British economy, and he denies now that actually he was talking about housing boom busts. In his very first budget in 1997, he explicitly explained that there would be no housing boom bust in this country again, because he knew the secret of how to prevent that happening. Now, any good economist will tell you that as people's real disposable incomes rise, that money ends up in one place and one place only, in the land market. As there is growth, land values must rise, and it should rise, except the problem occurs when that increase in value goes into private pockets instead of paying for the very services, highways and hospitals and schools and so on, which create the values in the first place. Party politics should be set aside, and there should be agreement on how to rescue principally the Western economy. Because you see, it will, in the West, it will not be business as usual after this, I call it a depression. If I were Gordon Brown, I would be convening in Brussels all the presidents and prime ministers, and I would say, this is the source of our problem, not bankers' big bonuses and subprime mortgages in America and the other excuses they have. This is the heart of the problem of the market economy. We have to address it. We need political consensus. There has to be this consensus so that nobody's playing party politics. And that consensus would come from understanding the reality of the economy. And after all, it's not as if this is a proposal that's fantastic.